You know, when you think about orchids, your mind probably jumps to those big, flashy Cattleyas or the Phalaenopsis you see everywhere. But tucked away in the cloud forests of Central and South America, there's this miniature marvel that challenges even the most expert growers. It's the Pleurothallis, but it has a much cuter name, the bonnet orchid.
And when I say it's a challenge, I am not kidding. These little plants have some of the most intricate, sometimes just bizarrely beautiful flowers you'll ever see. But they've got this notorious reputation for being, well, almost impossible to keep happy. So many orchid lovers have brought one of these home, tried their absolute best, and just watched it slowly fade away.
So what is the deal? Why is this tiny plant so incredibly finicky? Is there some secret fertilizer, some ancient ritual you have to perform? Well, the answer isn't magic, but it is fascinating, and it's all locked away inside the plant's biology and the very specific place it calls home.
To really crack the code of the bonnet orchid, we have to basically become plant detectives. We need to take a trip, at least in our minds, to its home, the high-elevation Neotropical cloud forests. The plant's entire being is just a perfect, beautiful adaptation to this one-of-a-kind environment, and that is our blueprint for success.
Okay, so here is the first huge clue. If you look at a typical Cattleya orchid, it has these big, fat, swollen stems called pseudobulbs. Think of them as built-in water tanks. The Pleurothallis, it has nothing like that, zero. Its only water reservoir is in its thin little leaves. What that means is it has absolutely no backup plan if things get dry.
And this right here explains why it doesn't need a backup plan where it lives. The cloud forest is a world of constant, dripping moisture. The humidity is always way up there, often near 100%. Temperatures are cool and stable, and there's always water, either from rain or from moisture just condensing right out of the clouds themselves. They call it fog drip. It's just a perpetually cool, damp, and shady world.
So the big question is, how on earth do we recreate that kind of world in our homes or our greenhouses? I know, it sounds pretty daunting, but we can actually break it all down into a really clear framework of 4 essential pillars.
So our pillars are temperature, hydration, light, and air movement. And you got to notice how they're all connected. You can't just nail one of them and ignore the others. They all have to work together in perfect harmony, just like they do back in the cloud forest.
All right, now for the fun part. Let's translate these pillars into actual, practical steps you can take to build your own little miniature cloud forest.
Let's kick things off with the single most important rule. Seriously, if you forget everything else from this explainer, just remember this one thing. Never, ever let them dry out. That is the absolute non-negotiable golden rule. For a plant that has 0 water storage, drying out is a swift death sentence.
And to put the challenge in perspective, look at this. The orchid wants humidity that is consistently above 80%. Meanwhile, the average home is sitting somewhere around 40%. That huge gap is exactly what we have to bridge. Just plopping this plant on a sunny windowsill, well, that is just not going to cut it.
So how do we do it? Well, you're going to be watering daily, sometimes even more. You want to use pure water, like rainwater or reverse osmosis water, because their roots are super sensitive to salt buildup. You can mount them on tree fern, which holds moisture really well, or pot them in a mix that stays damp but not, soggy. And for that all-important humidity in the air, an ultrasonic humidifier or a misting system inside an enclosure like a terrarium, that's often the real key to success. Now for pillar number 2, temperature. Just like constant moisture is their best friend, heat is their absolute worst enemy. These are cool growing orchids through and through. If they spend too much time above 27 degrees Celsius, that's 80 Fahrenheit, they get heat stressed, their metabolism just shuts down, and it can kill the plant pretty quickly. And here's a critical detail. This plant absolutely needs its nighttime temperature to drop, and drop into the 10 to 15 degrees Celsius range. That's about 50 to 59 Fahrenheit. This cool-down period is totally essential for its health, and it's very often the trigger that tells the plant, hey, it's time to make some flowers. Pillar number 3 is light. And for this one, just think about where they live, right? Under the thick canopy of a dense, misty forest. The sun is not just beating down on them. They are, at their core, shade-loving orchids. If you want to get technical about it, you're aiming for a pretty low light intensity, somewhere between 800 and 1500 foot candles. Now, to put that in perspective, direct sunlight is about 10,000. So yeah, it's pretty dim. Too much light is just going to burn their delicate leaves and stress the whole plant out, which makes it even more vulnerable to heat and dryness.
And finally, our 4th pillar, and this is the one that people so often forget, air movement. Look, in an environment that's always wet and humid, stagnant air is a total recipe for disaster. It's just a breeding ground for fungus and rot. A small, simple fan running continuously provides a gentle breeze that keeps diseases away, helps cool the leaves, and it even helps strengthen the plant itself.
So yeah, getting all 4 of these pillars right is definitely a rewarding challenge. But what's the bigger picture here? It turns out that learning to care for this picky little orchid is about way more than just keeping a plant alive. The hard reality is that those beautiful cloud forests, these orchids call home, are some of the most threatened ecosystems on the entire planet. Between deforestation and accelerating climate change, these incredibly specialized habitats are shrinking, and in some places, they're disappearing altogether.
This is where growers like you can actually come in. You'd be contributing to a vital effort called ex situ conservation. It sounds like a fancy scientific term, but it really just means protecting a species outside of its native home. Think of it like an insurance policy against extinction.
So when a dedicated hobbyist or a botanical garden really masters the difficult art of growing these orchids, they're doing something much bigger than just cultivating a plant. They're becoming a steward, They're maintaining a vital genetic reservoir that acts as a backup plan for species that are literally vanishing in the wild. Every single plant that's grown successfully is a small, but very real victory for biodiversity.
And that's a really powerful thought, isn't it? That all this demanding, meticulous work of recreating a tiny little slice of a cloud forest in a terrarium, it becomes this profound act of conservation. It really makes you wonder, by saving this one miniature marvel, could we also be holding on to a small but vital piece of a world that's slowly slipping away?